Well, hello there, and this is the David Lynch standalone film rankings from worst to best, in my opinion. And when I say worst, let's just go ahead and stop that right now because they're all outstanding films from the very bottom to the very top. So when I say the word quote unquote worst, I really just mean unlike this. I guess, when you're doing a ranking, you got to put it somewhere. So I guess it's quote unquote not as good, but realistically it is. And they're all amazing movies. They're all good. It's just not as good as a film that's above it. How about that? You know what I mean? Because like I said, I recommend all of these films. Everyone should watch all these movies at least once. And David Lynch is a brilliant mind and a fucking very unique soul when it comes to a directing style and character choice and just all kinds of things. So with that being said, though, we're going to move on in to our first of these movies. That'll be number 9, and I didn't say it yet, but I forgot to mention that this will not be counting, when I say standalone, this will not be counting the Twin Peaks movie, because it's connected to Twin Peaks, which I don't think would be a fair criteria to have something outside connected to something inside of these standalone films. And the same thing with the other film that's like extra stuff from Inland Empire. I don't feel like, once again, it's not a standalone thing, it's part of another film technically, so we're just going to count all the standalone works, and that makes it pretty rounded and easy that way. So as we go on, I think we'll have some fun, and I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you over at the first entry.
Rosie, I've got to go see Lyle, and I've got to make this trip on my own.
All right, here at number 9, we have The Straight Story. Like once again, this is the bottom of my list, but still a very good film. I recommend it to anybody, really. It's a heartfelt story. It's just simply put, it's like a tale of travel, a tale of coming of age, and a tale of just kind of, it's sad to say, but really just life winding down and coming to terms with it, and really just having like a epiphany along a very long journey on a riding lawnmower. And it's very, very unique in that sense. You don't really hear about it. It's based on a true story, and you don't really hear this kind of thing happening too often in a film. And a lot of his interactions with the people he meets are very very organic and very real, tangible things. It's awesome. Like the time where the people in the bike marathon ride their bikes by, and he just pulls over and he kind of just like waves at some of them, and they ended up kicking it with him, and they ended up learning a lot about him and him learning about them. And it's those people in that scenario will be telling their kids and other people about this interaction with this man that they just randomly found riding a lawnmower, going from states, very far distance just to visit his brother, who ironically is played by the guy from his brain in Escape from New York. What's his name? Harry Dean Stanton. Very good actor. His interaction with the pregnant girl on his travels was very wholesome, and her leaving the bundle of sticks, I feel like is signifying that, not only does she consider him family kind of for helping her realize that her family back at her home is what's important, and she can overcome anything pretty much with them. So it's really good. The Olsen twins are somehow mentioned in there, but not really. They're not the Olsen twins. This happens to be people called Olsen twins. I don't know if that was I'm pretty sure that was intentional. One thing I do remember is I think David Lynch loves car crashes, because a lot of his movies feature like car wrecks or like some type of like car issue or some sort of like issue with a mode of transportation. In this movie, you got both. You've got a car wreck where the woman hits the deer, and then you have the part where he's sliding down the hill on the riding lawnmower without the brakes. So you got all kinds of car crash stuff. And then as we go through this list, you'll see all kinds of stuff as well. So just something I noticed. Last thing I noticed before we move on is Big Ed from Twin Peaks is the John Deere salesman guy. That's always pretty nice to see. But overall, I really loved this movie. I did think that his redneck daughter, that was kind of, a little slow, as they put it, or whatever. She says she likes to party, and the way she said it reminded me of the guy from Cabin Fever who was like, "Oh, it's the party man. Party man. We're going to go party now." Like, if you've seen Cabin Fever, you'll know what I'm talking about. Oh, my God. But, yeah, good movie, and as I said, like, even it being in the very bottom of the list, these are all great films I recommend. So, with that being said, now here at number 8's Dune, but I wish I could put it higher, because this movie's actually got some pretty good high points to it. I really like this film. The new one's out, and I actually like this one, I say slightly better, but really I think it's more than even slightly better. I mean, the acting's better, in my opinion, better casting choice. Not even better acting, but just better casting. And like Max von Sydow, like, I don't know, putting Batista in a movie like Dune just isn't going to cut it for me, you know what I mean? But yeah, with that being said, though, they have great makeup and special effects as well, better than the CGI stuff they've got in the newer aged things. Practical effects will always win my heart. The things that are weak visually are the mass amount of fades, because like David Lynch likes to put fade cutouts, like, cut away from a scene to a fade to another scene. Not a big fan of that, but he does it more, I think, in The Elephant Man than anything, but we'll talk about that later. But all visuals that require, like, or that show the shields, like when they turn their shields on and it's like that yellow prism thing, that did not age well at all. But it's still, it looks interesting, but it's not, like, it doesn't look very well aged, if that makes sense. But there are a lot of good transitions in this movie too. If they're not fades, which there's, I can't remember exactly how many fades are in this one. It might not be as many in this one as there is other films of his, but he's got some really good shooting and great great transitions other than those ones. And it's shot in a brilliant way. Sometimes not the angle, but the what you're supposed to, the focus of the camera shot itself is actually spread out, so you're kind of looking at a bigger image instead of focusing on a small thing. So it's kind of the small details like that. Let's see. I figured out that Fallout got Mentats probably from this story, because there's a drug called Mentats, and there's a race in this called Mentats, and I feel like there's definitely a connection there. There's probably a lot of connection, like a lot of people compare this probably to Star Wars, because there's a lot of Star Wars style, or Star Wars-esque things in this. But it's confusing in the same ways too, all the different races and technology and metals and stuff. But the thing is if you read the book, you would have a lot better grasp on the topic matter as well. The interiors of some of the things look almost like Geiger-esque. Some of the ships and some of the even the planet structures and stuff, they look very not very Geiger-esque, but definitely very much in the vein of Geiger. The smoke coming out of the mouth and the architecture is very cool. Like you see that shot like probably 2-3 times, maybe 4 times. It kind of reminds me of Metropolis. You can tell there's like a lot of Metropolis. Lynch must have loved that movie, because not only in this but other films, once again, The Elephant Man, Eraserhead, they both have like very Metropolis feels, because, well, they're black and white for one, but some of the sequences in them, but also some of his colored movies like Dune has those kind of Metropolis feels as well, with the whole sci-fi thing is also added to it. I find it interesting that the power that he gets kind of reminds me of Code Geass. With the Geass power, he can pretty much, tell them to do whatever he wants them to do, and they'll pretty much do it. That's very, very cool, very interesting. It's also got slight Willy Wonka and Wizard of Oz vibes to me, but then once again, with Wild at Heart, David Lynch has a lot of Wizard of Oz style stuff and connections kind of anyway, so I guess, it's kind of just one with the way when it comes to David Lynch. So, yep, but I love it. It's a good film, and I wish I could put it higher, but like I say that with all these films except number 1, because it's the highest ones, because I love them all. So let's hop on to the next one. Yeehaw.
We've met before, haven't we?
Okay, and here we have a number 7, Lost Highway. I feel like this will probably get me shot from some people's opinion, but I like it a lot. Like I said, I love them all. But they got to go somewhere in the list, ladies and gentlemen. They got to go somewhere in the list. Bill Pullman does a good job in this film. I think Patricia Arquette really steals the show, though. I think she does the best of everybody in the film. Like, she's absolutely fantastic. The mystery man is a very good character, very creepy, not suspicious, this suspense-filled, and I guess he is suspicious, because, like, you don't really know what his end goals are or what his point is in the whole scheme of things in the story. Gary Busey's in this movie, which I found interesting. I like Gary Busey. Not all the time, because he's just such a weird, unique guy, but I love it. That's why I love him, probably. Really, I'm not a huge fan of the music choice. Like, the music, the actual organic, made for the soundtrack music is pretty fantastic, done by the same guy, I'm pretty sure, who did the Twin Peaks soundtrack. But I don't like the choice of, like, the 90s industrial metal, or just pretty much all the 90s music they threw into the movie. It's like every 2 minutes some 90s songs playing, and it's like, it's fine. Like, you know, a lot of movies have soundtracks, but when it comes to a David Lynch movie, I prefer like an actual like score compared to a bunch of thrown in soundtrack, you know, stuff. Kind of takes away from the film at times. And it's always during times of either surrealness or like during sex, and like, it's okay. Sex scenes are fine. I'm fine with it. There's a lot of sex in this movie, in fact, which is fine. But when it's accompanied by, like, you know, Nine Inch Nails and, like, you know, the Deftones, which, like I said, no problem with those bands or anything, but it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't mesh well with this movie, and that's one of my major qualms with it. Part of the reason why it's probably lower on the list. I do like the highway imagery, the use of like the road itself and the highway as an imagery device. It's really kind of like it's basically it's a way of transporting the guy who's, you know, going to be murdered or put to death on death row or whatever. It's kind of like he's using the highway to escape, like some people do in real life. They get in their car and they drive on the highway and to relieve stress. But in this way, he's using a mental highway to escape his, you know, demise. And what we're seeing is this kind of like the life he wishes that he, you know, we wish that he had. It's kind of like, yeah, it's just flashbacks of a dying man at death row, pretty much boiled down. But it gives me much Jacob's Ladder vibes, because there are a lot of comparisons. Like Jacob's Ladder is like, you don't know until the end, but it's actually a dying soldier's like last like visuals and last things he sees and hears before he dies, because it's all like mentally flashing in his mind. And it's brilliant because he kind of used the like the whatever ward, psych ward, whatever sanitarium he's supposed to be at in his mind as a way to deliver that plot device until, you know, at the very end it kind of hits you hard. And they're very similar. In the very end, when he's getting chased by the quote unquote police, it's really just a sign that that's when he's getting electric shocks. You see him freaking out in the car at the very end there, and that's the sign that it's the deed's done, you know, and he truly was a murderer. At least that's my interpretation on it. I do love the film, though. It's a great movie. And with all that being said, I hope no one's watching this. And yeah, this is definitely a spoiler territory, but I don't think you'd watch a top list if you're worried about spoilers for these movies. So either way, though, we'll see you at the next one.
Ich sage dir, du siehst ihn niemals wieder. Den Teufel werde ich tun. Mit dir würde ich bis ans Ende der Welt gehen.
All right, here at number 6, we have Wild at Heart, one of the, well, I mean, I can't say it's one of the craziest Nicolas Cage movies, because every Nicolas Cage movie is pretty much crazy because Nicolas Cage is in it, but this is definitely Cage doing Cage things, but he's also doing, like, there's a novel that this book is based on, and he's really doing a good job of actually, you know, playing the part of the person from the novel. Laura Dern's in this movie. She's in lots of David Lynch's works, also in Jurassic Park. She is great in this film. One of her best roles, in my opinion. There's a lot of Wizard of Oz references in this film. A lot of those in a good chunk of David Lynch's works. But it's a continuing thing with the grandmother or whatever. I mean, she's seen as the fairy godmother from Wizard of Oz, but she's the actual mother of Laura Dern's character, and she keeps sending hitmen and stuff to stop them being together. And Nicolas Cage ends up in prison for a while, and there's just a lot of weird scenes and a lot of funny characters and a lot of disgusting characters, like Willem Dafoe's character. Also played brilliantly. Willem Dafoe being in the movie was just kind of a shock to me too. The car crash scene where they, once again, David Lynch loves his car crashes. They come across Audrey Horne, the actress that plays her, and she's like the only survivor of the car crash, and she's like stumbling around, and they're trying to help her, take her back to safety and get her help. And pretty much as throughout the process of the whole event, like, she's confused, and it takes them a while to get her to actually start following them. And she pretty much just sits there and like kind of, slowly loses mental consciousness and dies pretty much in front of them, pretty much in their arms, if you will. And it's such an emotional scene, and it's so crazy to me, like how this movie swings from like, pure comedy to like pure drama to like sad stuff. It jumps around a lot. It pretty much goes from extreme comedy to extreme drama all the time, and it's just crazy swings. And it's really underrated. I feel like a lot of people give this movie a lot of shit for some reason, and I don't think it's deserved at all. I think people said it's developed kind of a cult status over the time, and I think it deserves it because it's really unique. And I really actually haven't read the book, and I'm probably going to just because of this movie, because I'm assuming they followed the book pretty well. Apparently David Lynch didn't like the ending of the book though, so he changed the ending of the movie. So I feel like I'll probably hate the ending of the book too, but the ending of the movie it's nice. It's a really nice movie overall, with a lot of just, emotional jabs to the ribs, but also just some funny stuff as well. And it's Nicolas Cage at his finest, and Laura Dern does a damn good job too. It's definitely one of her finest moments as well. So, and like I said, the fairy godmother, aka the mom of Laura Dern, is none other than Diane Ladd, who's also in lots of Lynch's work. So it's interesting when they all kind of couple all that together into a nice little soup known as Wild at Heart, and I love it. And I wish I could put it up higher, but I'm gonna say it about every single movie practically. So here at number 5 we have Eraserhead, and I love this movie. God, I feel like I'm repeating that beginning every time, but I just want to reiterate, it's got to go somewhere in this list. The imagery is grotesque and wonderfully great. It's wonderfully grotesque, if you will. Like, it's really just shows the fears that some parents, or even probably all parents at some point in their parenting lives, go through when they, have this, first time, especially first time parents, when they have this unknown, basically entity, if you will, to them. It's brand new to the world, and it's, doing all these things that you can't really fix or can't really help, but you're trying to guide, do the best you can. And it's just like the grotesqueness of the child in the movie just goes to mimic the grotesqueness of the idea of parenting to some people in the beginning, maybe throughout their entire parenting career, if you will. Like, some people just don't really like parenting or the idea of parenting, but you would think those people would choose not to have kids, but sometimes it just happens. And there's a bunch of different things that would lend credence to this kind of idea. And like, even the noises it makes, and like all the awkward scenes and the long shots just kind of show like the it's almost like an air of hopelessness, to it all. And the character, just his reactions to everything around him, just kind of shows how overwhelmed and shocked and just appalled he kind of is at the life he lives. And like, he just, you could tell that he probably wishes that this wasn't his life, but at the same time, there are some glimmers, I say some glimmers of hope in the story. Like, the babies, sometimes it's kind of cute when it's not gross and grotesque, and there is a pot of gold supposed at the end of the rainbow, and maybe there is a ray of hope there. But this movie really gets you thinking about that whole parental cycle, and you know, the mundanity of it, really, and also this kind of fear. It's like, you know, you don't know, no matter how good of a job you think you're doing, like, are you doing a good job? And like the baby itself, like, what if it's, you know, hell, even like babies born with like deformities and such, maybe this is kind of like a commentary on that. Like, you know, like he did do the Elephant Man, so, you know, there's all kinds of just hidden layers in here. Like, you know, granted, I don't think the deformity thing's, it's barely a little speck on the whole entire surface, but all these ideas combined really make it interesting viewing pleasure. Out of the 2 black and white movies that I do in this rankings, I like both of them quite a bit, and I think the black and white really adds to the eeriness of this particular film. And with that being said, and with me having no kids, sorry, I gotta add this in here. Me having no kids, this movie hits right the nail on the head with me. Like, I don't know, something definitely resonates within me with this movie. So, but we'll see you at the next one though, and yeehaw again.
Around, mister. Why is your head so big, mister?
Here at number 4, we got classic 1980s film. We have The Elephant Man. It's about the true story of a one Joseph Merrick in the movie named John Merrick. I guess kind of as a, I don't know, maybe like slight identity protection. I don't really know. But it's a great film. Anthony Hopkins plays a doctor who discovers the attraction at a carnival. It's like a carnival that attracts, you know, different sideshows, performers of different types. Like they've got like twins, I think, are conjoined together. They got like, you know, dwarfs, midget people. They have really tall people, like guy, you know. So, and the doctor goes there and he finds the Elephant Man, which is like one John in the movie Merrick, and he has like a bunch of different like abnormal deformities, like, you know, growths around the, like, a head is like very bulbous and, you know, huge, probably at least double the size of a normal head, with like a lot of like tumorous growths, you know, on his body and around the head and like the side of his, like, you know, body, and his, you know, his spine's curved, and he's you know, he is definitely abnormal when you look at the, you know, literally the term abnormal. He's not the, you know, normal human, and that's what, you know, elicits such a response. Usually people, you know, scream at him, you know, not at him, but some people do, sadly enough, in the story, but people scream in terror at looking at him. They'll run in fear when he's actually, you come to find out, like a gentle, just a real super gentle soul who actually is very intelligent, come to find out. Like, you find out throughout the progress of the story that he's actually able to read, write, and learn, and has free thought for himself. You know, like, he's not like an invalid of the mind that, like, you know, people would like to accuse people of, which becomes a plot, kind of a semi-plot in the storyline itself. But it's just a really heartwarming tale. The end makes you sad, but, you know, like, someone with his deformities, you know, it's bound, you know, his, you know, demise was inevitable. It's all of our demise is inevitable, but the way it's presented, I think, is actually very brilliant and very artsy, and there's a lot of cool, like, visuals that you could tell. It's definitely got that Lynchian flavor to it, which I'm really happy with. So yeah, I mean, it's a very good film, and we will move on to the next one, and we'll be getting pretty close. It'll be in the top 3. I almost forgot to mention, and I don't know why, but the guy that plays the Elephant Man himself, the actor that portrays him, does a very fantastic job. I'm sure the prosthetics took forever to add. And the effects of the Elephant Man himself look fantastic, and like I said, it probably took hours to put those on every time they shot. And he does a great job of speaking with, like, a mouth in a very odd way. And yeah, I just had to add that as a note at the end here, because I totally forgot to mention those two things, and they definitely add to the storyline and the feel of the movie as well. They also really, the black and whiteness, once again, it's like Eraserhead, also adds a nice vibe and a nice, it just looks so chic, even though it's in black and white, and it's fantastic. It looks great. So now we're on to number 3.
I can't believe it. I'm just so excited to be here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, these top 3 movies could all really deserve a deep dive video in themselves. But number 3, we have Mulholland Drive. A lot of people say it's the best work of his, but it's hard for me to put it any higher because the top 2 on my list are just, I don't know, beat it out ever so fractionally. The top 3, maybe even the top 4 or 5 make my top 100 movies list of all time. So yeah, but it's a great movie. The subtleties in the way it's shot and everything that you know, small details, you know, are very key. Lots of Twin Peaks actors. You got the guy at the diner. You got Naomi Watts. Naomi Watts, of course, being Janie E from Twin Peaks. This is a movie where surreal is done wonderful. You don't know, like, what are we watching and from whose perspective are we, like, supposed to take, like, in the most consideration. Like, you know, what's in the blue box is a big important question. Like, is it an extension of, like, the whole Pandora's box thing? Once you open Pandora's box, you can't put them back in. And then since Naomi Watts opened Pandora's box, she couldn't go back to her fantasy world and was now into the what is the reality. It's kind of reminds you of Seven, like, because the whole thing about Seven's trying to figure out what, you know, what's in the box, you know. So it's interesting in that regard. And some people say that the creature in the back behind the diner or whatever with the box is a extension of Lynch himself being able to have mass control over, you know, since he's the director of the realms that we see before our eyes. And it's actually a pretty mind-blowing idea. The duality of Rita and Camilla, played by Laura Harring, she is amazing. She was actually the first Hispanic woman to be crowned Miss America. It says Miss USA, which I assume is the same thing. But this is a great movie for her to be in, considering she's not in that many roles. So to be in this, it's fantastic. Her acting prowess is way better than someone you would expect from something like that. So, and her playing basically a duality of 2 characters, both Rita and Camilla. Rita being what Betty wants life to be like, and Camilla, you know, that version of her is the real version in the world that Betty actually lives in. And I think it's kind of funny, we got director Adam, who's actually affected negatively in the I call it Rita's world versus Camilla world. You got Rita's world where things go bad for both for Rita because she got in a car wreck, and you got Adam, who's like getting commandeered by people to specifically pick Camilla for an acting role, unbeknownst to her, and that only happens in the realm that Betty wants. But when Betty's in the realm where Camilla is the personality, Adam basically ends up marrying her. And it goes to show that she uses Adam as a way, as a person to mirror her negative view of Hollywood experience, because she wanted the typical, like, you know, oh, Hollywood, the glitz and glamour experience, and, you know, in the first part of the video or the movie you experience that, and then you experience what people really experience in Hollywood, which is the negatives and the not instant success that she gains, and the good portions of her before she opens the blue box. The hitman, I like the hitman scenes. He's funny, but also like menacing at the same time. Like funny by accident because he's just so bad at being a hitman, but by being a hitman, he is menacing. So it's very weird. Billy Ray Cyrus is probably the most random thing in the whole movie. I thought that was it was interesting acting choice. Not a bad one. He does a decent job. And he's, you know, acted in other stuff too. So I guess it's not too big a surprise. It's just really weird though. And the cowboy is a crazy entity in itself. People compare him to the mysterious man from Lost Highway, which makes sense. Maybe he's like a harbinger of death. Some people say he's like the giant or the fireman, like he's like, you know, almost from, you know, the otherworldly kind of thing, like Bob from Twin Peaks. You know, really his motives are just unknown, and we do indeed see him the amount of times he says that if you do wrong, so whatever happens throughout the story which was done quote unquote wrong, we get like basically the bad ending to the story. So Mulholland Drive is like if you play a pick your own storyline game, and then you end up getting the bad ending. That's kind of what it is in a nutshell, but it's way more than that too, you know. Such a brilliant film. But I could talk, like I said, forever about it, which I might do in a different video. But anyway, let's move on to the next one, shall we? Here we are with number 2, Blue Velvet. It was actually financed and produced by the Dino De Laurentiis company, which I fucking love Dino De Laurentiis movies and a lot of the stuff that he also helps fund, so it's a pretty cool little tidbit there. Isabella Rossellini does a great job. She's seductive, elegant, but yet kind of, definitely has like a I don't know, like a dark side, but definitely has something, an edge to her, we'll say. Kyle MacLachlan, God, that name, does a wonderful job in it as well. Laura Dern does. She's definitely like the innocent love, of Kyle's character. But like he. Jeff's is Kyle's character's name, by the way. Jeff gets caught in a series of events that lead him down a crazy train of events. And we got Dennis Hopper in a movie where Dennis Hopper just absolutely steals the show as Frank Booth. He's where the scene where Jeff gets stuck in the closet and freaking Dennis Hopper's character, which is Frank, as I said, he ends up beating Dorothy to sexually assaulting her, all while huffing from this like gas mask thing that he uses all throughout the movie, and he goes through like crying manic fits to like this violent rage, and it just shows like pure acting chops from Dennis Hopper for sure. The movie's named after a 1963 song from Bobby Vinton, and it's sang throughout the movie by Dorothy, and it's also just played multiple times. The ending sequence is pretty neat, and the movie does really go to show that violence is everywhere in our world. It's never too far off, but it beautifully blends psychological horror, film noir with a nice slight surrealism tinge in there. It's just a real wonderful movie. It's definitely like it got like a little bit of everything in it, and it's a unique story that you won't even see anyone like doing anything quite like this ever really again. And there's just a lot of not random, but a lot of like well-placed, hints or little nuggets there. And it's like it delves into a lot of weird, topics like, sadomasochism and like sex slavery and like psychopathic tendencies and stuff. So it's really just, it's fan-fucking-tastic. I can't say more about it really. I can say a lot more about it, I should say, but I can say so much that I need to make another video about this movie in itself. Because it's so great, and the score on it's fantastic. The music was done by Badalamenti, who did the music for Twin Peaks, and he did the music for Lost Highway, and I think he did the music for Inland Empire, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's just fantastic. It's all the way around. This movie's great, and from here we can only get to my number 1. So let's tap dance our way over there, shall we?
No, I think you are wrong about that.
No.
Brutal fucking murder.
And here we are at my favorite and one of my top films of all time ever is Inland Empire. David Lynch's best work in my opinion. Like I said though, don't take that with a huge grain of salt, considering I love all of these movies, and the top 3 sometimes are interchangeable, but for the most times Inland Empire scores the W. It's got interesting shooting style and choices. It's got the low quality on purpose, which is great. It's shot on like hand cam, which gives it a nice like creepy, weird vibe. The lady from Twin Peaks does fantastic job in this movie. I mean, not that she's in it very long, but when she's in it, she absolutely steals the show, and it's fantastic. Actions do have consequences is a quote that she says, and it's very important. That is very much important throughout the film. Realistically, it does surrealism just as well as Mulholland Drive does. You could questionably say it does it better. It just kind of depends on your tastes on that one, but it does it wonderfully. This is definitely Laura Dern's best work, I think, as far as her acting career goes. It'd probably go this and Blue Velvet and Jurassic Park, are all up there for sure. Diane Ladd is in everything, might I say, because she's also in Wild at Heart. She's in this, so she gets around in a lot of his films as well. The rabbits sequences that are added to this movie are actually part of just a regular short story or short series of films that David Lynch did. Actually, a lot of these things, or some of these, are just short stuff that Lynch did that are combined by a storyline, loose storyline, if you will. It reminds me of like Inception and like Fight Club mixed with Lost Highway. Like, it's got kind of like a vibe of all of those movies. It's nothing like any of them singly, and even just saying it reminds me of those is just like, you know, barely touching the surface in this film. It's a pretty long film, and I can't say how, it's just fantastic. The awkward angles, the close-ups on it are great. The lighting and the shakiness of the hand cam, it could be jarring or blurry. It's so good. Lynch does a great job, and he also loves red curtains, which is funny because you got the red curtains a lot in Twin Peaks. You got the red curtains in this. I know there's in another one of the other movies, I think, that also has imagery of the red curtains. So, yeah, I mean, the scene where the drug addict, homeless person or whatever, I don't know if she's drug addict, I put that down, so she probably is, but she explains, you know, in depth, like, you know, like to the main character, Laura's character, pretty much as she's dying, like what she's experiencing as she's dying, and then it pans out and it shows that goddamn camera, and then you hear cut, and it's like, oh my god, it's just fantastic. Like, you don't even know what you're seeing anymore. Like, you're seeing what you think might be her real life, and then all of a sudden it's like she's sitting there at the homeless people, and she's like literally slowly dying, and the homeless girl next to her lights the lighter and is like, you'll like that, when you're basically telling her you'll like this as you're dying, because you're like going to be, you know, tripping out and like seeing your life flash before your eyes. And then you see Laura Dern just, you know, die, and then, you know, it's like, oh my god, this moment is very riveting already. And then like all of a sudden you see the camera pan away and pan back, and it moves back, and all of a sudden it's a freaking, there's a director's like camera there, and then you hear the cut, and it's like everyone gets up but her character and walks away, and she eventually does get up, but it's like it is, oh my god, it's just a mental journey and a mental trip, and all the visuals and what it leaves you thinking about and the ideas behind it are just top notch. Lynch at his best. I mean, all of these are Lynch at his best, because Lynch is never not really at his best. I mean, people shit on Dune, and people shit on any one of these titles. People shit on David Lynch for no reason at all, but I'm telling you, like, these movies are all fantastic, and Inland Empire is just like the top of that, to me, the top of that amazing iceberg that we've, you know, went through. We've went through this journey together from my, you know, from my bottom to my top, and everyone has their own opinions, and I'm just glad that you guys joined me for that. And that being said, yes, leave your comments down below and join me again for another one of these rankings. I'm not sure who I'm doing next or what I'm doing next, but we will see in the future.